for coming tonight. Thank all the candidates for coming tonight. Because of the time constraints we have, we've limited each candidate's time to speak to 2 minutes on each question that we have. We're going to start this with the premise that we thank all of you candidates for the willingness, your willingness to put yourself in the public view for the betterment of the community. We're anxious to get to know you and your views on the subjects that we think are important to the community. We have 5 questions, which will be followed by questions from the audience as time allows. We're going to ask those questions in a random order. But before we do that, what I'd like to do is start by giving each one of you 2 minutes to introduce yourself to the audience and tell us who you are and why you think you'd be a good candidate for Blair. So why don't we just run that down the line here, starting with Bob McConnell.
Thank you, and good evening. Thanks for your interest and for being here. I'm Robert McConnell. And I've lived in this town for 25 years, where I've served on the Planning Commission, the Vallejo Charter Review, the City Manager's Budget Advisory Committee. I've operated a business here. I've got a background in public administration, both an undergraduate and graduate degree. I've been practicing law for many years, including in the bankruptcy financial litigation area. I've worked with the State Personnel Board, with the federal government when I was a law clerk. I've been a deputy district attorney, and after all of this, and moving out here, I've come to realize that we have to change this city. We need to change it substantially. As far as I'm concerned, if I don't get involved, I don't think it will change. I'm willing to put my mouth where I put it in the past and put myself on the line, because I think I can bring about change along with other people who can be elected to this city council. So we're here tonight to try to explain ourselves to you, get to know you as persons, how we think, and hopefully ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Bob Sampaya, and I know a lot of you folks here in the room, and I want to thank the Hiddenbrooke community for inviting us here this evening to introduce ourselves to you. More importantly, to tell you what we're about and why we want to be council members and a mayor. So with that in mind, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a retired police sergeant from the Vallejo Police Department. I have about 35 years of law enforcement experience. My last assignment with the city of Vallejo was the commander supervisor of the Central Community Substation in downtown Vallejo. I'm currently now employed by Fighting Back Partnership as a crime prevention coordinator. With these 2 jobs, I've been able to mingle in the community, and I've learned what the issues are, where the problems are in town, what is going on, and I've been able to help develop solutions, long and short term, for these problems. Why am I running for council? It's very simple. Our city is a city in transition. We have to have a cohesive council. We have to be able to say that we have issues that we need to work on. Those being financial stability, economic development, our educational system, and public safety. With that, I do have a plan for each, and I am dedicated to the city of Vallejo.
Switch this other mic.
Are we okay?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Joanne Shively. I was born, raised, and educated right here in Vallejo. This has always been my home, and I'm very proud of it. I'm a retired bank executive, have over 40 years of banking experience, and also co-own a local business for 15 years. I served on the city council for 3 terms and have always been in the voting minority. Recently, I recovered $2.7 million of general fund loans, and those funds allowed us, the city, to exit early from bankruptcy. I've also been responsible for charter changes that required a structurally balanced budget, a general fund reserve policy, and a 5-year financial plan. Additionally, I chaired the now well-known Citizens Budget Advisory Committee. I'm running for mayor because Vallejo quite literally cannot afford 4 more business as usual years. In bankruptcy, the council majority, the one I've never been a voting part of, approved 2 employee contracts that included pay raises, reduced our police force to 90 officers, and closed fire stations. I voted against those contracts. I ended costly, unproductive employee contract negotiations with think outside the box leadership. For the first time ever, an employee group was offered the unprecedented opportunity to come up with their own solution for a $3.2 million budget gap. When the contracts expire next year, I will offer the other employee groups the same opportunity.
Before we move on, I think the candidates have already figured this out, but I want to introduce our timekeeper, Randy Fu, who's in front here with a big sign. And he's going to remind you when there's 60 minutes to go, when there's 30 seconds to go, and when there's 10 seconds to go, and then he has a gun at the end.
Wow. Let's just hope he's not a good shot.
Go ahead. Does that work?
I think it's working. Is that working? Can you hear me? Okay, great. Good evening. I want to thank the Hiddenbrooke Community Association for hosting tonight's forum. I think this is a very important event for, obviously elections are very important events for communities, but I think having the actual candidates come out to your organization and speak to you is extremely important, and I'm very pleased to see so many of you out here. My name is Erin Hannigan, and I'm running for re-election to the City Council. I know we've got a mix up here of mayor and City Council candidates, but I'm doing that because I want to build off of the work that I've been doing on the City Council since my election in 2007. I'm the only candidate here tonight with a proven record of getting things done. I've promoted Vallejo as a business-friendly city when State Farm was looking to relocate to the East Bay. I worked to bring their 220 jobs to Vallejo down on the waterfront. Last month, I met with our former and our soon-to-be congressmen, and we toured the ADR, the dry docks, and the shipbreaking, and looking at ways to bring more jobs to Vallejo by dismantling old ships for the federal government and creating these jobs here in our community and not in Brownsville, Texas. Instead of, I authored the chronic nuisance ordinance. While not yet ratified, it's resulted in a 50% reduction of emergency service calls in the most crime-ridden properties, which actually redirects resources to the rest of the community. I saved the city millions of dollars in street maintenance costs by getting semi-trucks off our surface streets and getting them on the highways where they belong. I'm working on making Vallejo good stewards of the environment and protecting our waterways by addressing the litter caused by newspaper stands on public right-of-ways and styrofoam from our restaurants. And together, we jump-started the ferry parking structure and completed the bus transfer station. The dry docks reopened, Kaiser completed their new hospital, and Solano 80 Center was born. I'd be honored to have your vote on November 8th. Thank you. I got the signal.
Good evening. I am happy to be here this evening, and want to thank the Hiddenbrooke community for hosting this forum. Today is a good day. The Giants won. Hopefully there's no Oakland fans, but yeah, this is a great day, not only because the Giants won, but because the city of Vallejo has a stable budget over the next 5 years. The question that you're going to have to answer when you cast your vote on November 8th is who has the best ideas for how we move the city forward from stability and a level of service that's unacceptable to most residents. How do we move forward into something that restores Vallejo to being a great city again? I think I'm the candidate that will offer those ideas. I am a candidate of the future. I'm a candidate of now as well. But I look forward to your support. Just a little bit about me. I currently manage the Marin City Community Services District, which is a local agency in Marin County. We're responsible for street lighting, garbage pickup, and parks and recreation services. We develop parks, we run after-school programs. We're also very much involved in the political landscape of the Marin community. And so in that role, I advocate on behalf of the 4,000 residents that live in Marin City, and I think I do it pretty effectively. We have many success stories to share, and I want to bring that to Vallejo. Vallejo is my home. It's been my home since I was 5 years old. I'm a third generation Vallejoan. I've lived in the city, again, for 25 plus years. And my goal is to make Vallejo better, not just for the residents that live here now, but the residents that will come after us. On November 8th, I would really appreciate your support and your vote for me. My name again is John Logan. Thank you.
Mr. Nagel.
I'm not sure if this will move. Looks like it's taped down. So we can pull it out.
Good evening, Hiddenbrooke. Thank you so much for hosting this first forum in the 2011 elections. My name is Jesus Jess Malgapo, and I've lived in Vallejo with my family since 1981. I first joined the Navy as an enlisted man, and after my 5th year, I had an opportunity to receive a commission, and I became a naval officer. So I have 20 years of management experience with the military, including management of multi-million-dollar operations, particularly in logistics, as the material and equipment are moving on a global scale. It was very challenging, and I think I measured up to those demands. After I retired from the service, I joined Shaw Environmental Group. It's a private company based in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but we have an office here in Concord. And that gave me the experience and exposure in project management, environmental remediation, and construction. So I have 10 years of that. Elsewhere around the community for the last 10 years, I've been an advocate, I've been a community leader, helping out in cultural events, and I'm very much involved with the veterans of not only Vallejo, but Solano County. So I'm running for a spot in the City Council because I think that there is a lot we can do with Vallejo. Vallejo is like a diamond in the rough. We're not the gateway to Napa County. We can stand on our own and be a jewel in the Bay Area. So I hope you get to know more about me. Look at my brochures, my website, and I do hope you vote for me on November 8th. Thank you.
Mr. Davis.
Good evening. Good evening. I've had the privilege and the honor to serve as your mayor for the past 4 years. I am a almost lifelong resident of Vallejo. My family moved here when I was age 2 years. And we've lived here since I've attended public schools here. I have a degree from Fresno State College in Mechanical Engineering, a degree from UC Berkeley, Both Hall in law. I practiced law here in Vallejo for the last 37 years. And for the last 4 years, as I said, I have served as your mayor. I've had the opportunity to serve as your mayor, maybe I shouldn't say opportunity, but the opportunity to serve as your mayor through one of the worst financial crises this city has ever faced. We have come through some difficult times, and as a council, we have come together when it was necessary to do the things to right the financial shift and to move our city forward. I have been a leader in putting forth ideas and things necessary to right that financial shift and to rebuild our city. But I have to say, nothing can be done in this city by one person. It takes a full council to make things happen. I had said in my initial campaign statement 4 years ago that I was going to be about consensus building. It may have taken a little while, but we're in the process now of working together, and I've been able to build a consensus. Having come through the financial storms that we have come through, there are a lot of positive things happening in the city on the horizon. And there are a lot of things that we can do. There are some issues that will be coming up later, I'm sure, that we'll talk about, but I desire to continue working to rebuild the city. And the first and foremost thing in my mind is public safety, economic development is second, and infrastructure is third. I will say more later.
Thank you, Sis. Now for our first question, and I said we're going to do this in random order. So I guess it's fair to say we're going to start with John Logan on his first question, and then we'll go down. John, we'll go from there to your right and come back down here to Mr. McConnell. First question is, the council has placed on the ballot a measure to impose a 1% sales tax of the gross receipts of any retailer from the sale of all tangible personal property sold at retail, and a use tax on the storage, use, or other consumption in the city of tangible personal property purchased from any retailer at the rate of 1%. What is your position with regard to this tax?
Let me start off by saying I don't like taxes any more than the next guy. Currently, I live on Mare Island. I bought a home about a year and a half ago now. We, in addition to our 1% assessment, we also have a Melrose tax, which I understand folks here at Hiddenbrooke, you have the same thing. So let me just preface my comments by saying I don't care for taxes at all. But I think taxes are necessary in this time, specifically a sales tax. So I am supportive of Measure B. I think because our revenues are stable right now, we're in a decent position. But again, service levels are unacceptable. I think the Measure B will give us an opportunity to invest in things. And I don't want to go into it blindly, and I don't want folks to think that I wouldn't have a plan for spending the money. So what I would propose to do, and what I would advocate for if elected to the council and Measure B passes, I would advocate for resources to be invested into the school through public safety officers. We all know that our schools have a bad reputation. Part of the bad reputation has to do with the fact that folks don't think that the schools are safe. By putting a couple officers at the school, we can quickly rebuild that public image. Additionally, that will attract jobs, which is the next area that I would invest in, economic development. The next area is public safety. I really would like to see more cops on the street. I think that's important. The other issue that's important is to invest in youth development and youth job training. I think we can run a citywide summer youth jobs program. And I just want to say one more thing. I have 10 seconds, but I see the special tax or the tax increase, Measure B, as a one-time revenue, and so we should spend it in that way. They should be strategic investments that will grow our city as we move forward.
Sorry about that, my cell phone rang. I apologize. Okay, I hope that didn't count for my 2 minutes. But I also favor Measure B. As you know, it's been a rough 3 years, and I credit our incumbent council for bringing us to this point. They did the hard work, they rolled their sleeves, they made painful decisions, including issuing pink slips to our employees. And those are hard things to do, and they prevailed, and now we're at a point where we are in a position to begin economic recovery. But Measure B is essential. We have a flat budget for the next 5 years. It was carefully planned, but any fluctuation in revenue, if it moves to the left, then we're back in perilous situation. The execution of the budget and the levels of service immediately becomes jeopardized by reduced revenue. So there's not a whole lot of wiggle room. That's why I favor Measure B. The other thing that it will do is, I know people are concerned, how is that money going to be spent? I would advocate that we devote some of that money towards public safety. We all know at one time we had 130 police officers. We're down to like 95. You can be creative in policing. You can use electronics. You can use technology, video cameras. Sometimes that's not sufficient, and I think it's inevitable that we're going to have to raise our manning levels, and any revenues from part of the revenues that will be collected from Measure B can be used toward that purpose. And the sales tax is not permanent. It has a sunset. So we pay the price now with a little bit of pain, but in the end, the city will benefit us all.
Yes?
I'm also in favor of the 1 cent sales tax. I was an advocate for putting it on the ballot. I had been an advocate because I believe it's a way to rebuild our city. Need to say that we have been paying a 1 cent sales tax that has been going to the state of California, but that has sunsetted as of this year. And it is my belief that we can continue to pay that 1 cent, but that 1 cent stays in our community and helps us to rebuild our city. We have already made the tough decisions. We have filed a bankruptcy plan that has been approved by the court, and we're coming out of bankruptcy. That says the bankruptcy judge has determined that we made the right decision to establish ourselves financially and stably, and we're able to move forward. The state, the revenues that we receive from the 1 cent sales tax is my proposal that those monies be used to increase our public safety to a level that's acceptable and beneficial to our community, number one. Number two, that we invest in opening the fire stations that we have closed, that we invest in fixing those potholes in our streets that you have to dodge every time you drive somewhere, and that we invest quite a bit of money into economic development so that we don't have to find ourselves in this position again. Without those kinds of infusions of capital in our economy right now, I don't know how we're going to rebuild our city in the immediate future. It's going to take time. Economic development is coming, but economic development is slow. If we were to start today with economic development, we still would not find the benefits of that until at least 5 to 7 years down the road. So it's a way to do it now, and I'm hopeful that the public will in fact say yes, so that we can rebuild our city and move forward. Remember, we have no plan in our budget right now. Our budget is stable. For the next 5 years, there's no increase in wages, there's no increase in personnel, and there's no way we can ask the public to continue to do that. Public employees to continue to do the same thing for the next 5 years without some relief.
Thank you. Mr. McConnell.
Thank you. I'm against the tax. I'm going to vote no. And here's why. Several of these candidates have referred to giving more money to different functions, and that does not address the need, which is the need for change in thinking of our city council. If we give them more money without any type of restrictions on that, which the general tax will enable them to do, they may use it as they desire. And I think that is a big mistake. An example was reference to the public officers in the schools. I do a lot of counseling in this town. I talk to hundreds and hundreds of families in this town in my business. And every one of them has told me that they do not want to see a return to the uniformed officer in the schools. It makes their children feel like they're in an armed encampment. Instead, what they have done is they have hired personal security officers who are actually employees of the school. They don't wear guns, they don't wear badges, they're not police officers. They know the families, they know the community, and they know the issues. And if we then return to a bringing of more police officers back in, put them on the schools, we will return to the same problems we've had there before. And education is the key to enhancement. If they want to use money for public development, for public safety, for anything, the problem is that that would become a special tax which would require a 75% affirmative vote by the public. So if we want to have monies used for special purposes, let's kill the general tax raise, and if we're really serious, put it back on the ballot where we have special taxes, because otherwise we don't change the attitude of the city council. And remember, when you're selecting this city council, you're selecting the team that is going to bargain on the contracts that come up in 2012. We have that money on the table. you can be sure it will be asked for by others. Thank you.
Measure B. B stands for the silver bullet that everybody is hoping is going to bring Vallejo out of the doldrums that it's in now. I have to agree with Mr. McConnell that it is not the way to go. In looking over Measure B, what do we see? We see that there will be approximately $9.8 million. Have we looked at how much money we spend each year on employee contracts? Have we looked to see where our money is actually going? My concern is this: Vacaville has 36 more police personnel, that's sworn and non-sworn. That's 36 more than Vallejo. And they pay almost $4 million less per year for those 36 more police personnel. They have 3 more firefighters than what we have, and they pay $1.8 million less. If our police and fire departments were staffed and paid the same as Vacaville, or in that approximate area, we would save approximately $5.8 million per year. My point is this, that it is not a silver bullet. It's an additional tax that we don't need, and we have to learn to manage the money that we have. If we fail to do that, we fail as a city. We fail as a city council. I am definitely not in favor of Measure B. Thank you.
Shagley?
Did I hand it? No, okay. Keep in mind, please, that this is not a 1 cent sales tax. It is a 1% sales tax. So if you go buy something for $2,000 and you think you're going to pay a penny extra, no, you're going to pay $20 more than if you bought the same item anywhere else in Solano County, in Napa, or American Canyon. This will put our existing businesses at a disadvantage and discourage new businesses. I voted to put this on the ballot so that citizens of Vallejo could vote on it and make this decision, but I completely, wholeheartedly oppose it. Some of the previous speakers would have you believe that a lack of revenue is the cause of Vallejo's financial problems. It is somewhat, but it is certainly not the sole cause. Any new sales tax will hurt those who can afford them least. It also does not address the root of the problem, which is unsustainable employee contracts. For years, Vallejo's balanced its budget by reducing staff and slashing essential services. We have to stop cutting services and start reducing the cost of providing them. Many city employees make more than $100,000 a year and get benefits that none of the rest of us do. We have pension costs that are totally out of our pocket, to continue to support. This is Vallejo's $100,000 pension club as provided by PERS. Future city councils will be able to spend this sales tax revenue any way they choose with no restrictions. The expected revenue is $9.8 million per year. The sunset is 10 years. It's not the day after tomorrow. I will have this information up on my website soon, but this will show you that in the last 4 years, over $9.1 million has been wasted by bad decisions, such as contracts that we could not afford, buying waterfront property for our new parking structure, using an appraisal that was over 8 months old. That is not acceptable if you're going to buy a house. Nobody's going to loan you money on the house. If you've got an appraisal that's more than 6 months old. It says 10 seconds. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't hold them both up. You confuse me.
Thanks, man. All right, well, we've heard a lot of rhetoric tonight, and so really what I want to let you know is just to kind of talk about a couple of facts here that you heard. You know, I appreciate my my colleagues up here who like to cite facts that I don't know that they're talking to everybody. I talked to a school safety officer, you know, one that is hired and works at the schools, wears the school uniform, not a public safety officer. He works actually at the schools. And the comment he tells me is, when I need the PD, which is every day, they can't get them there because they're busy on other calls. So I don't think that hiring officers to help with the schools and the needs that happen in our schools is so unrealistic. We have serious problems in our schools with crime. Kids are carrying guns and drugs. They come to school drunk. There's fighting, there's theft, there's you know, all kinds of activity that occurs on our school grounds that you wouldn't want to be in the middle of, and they do need the support of the Vallejo Police Department, so I would give you that. I'd also say that the same person who is critical of our current employee contracts was actually in office and voted for the contracts that we had to deal with when they came to light with the reduction in our general fund revenues. So this is the one who put those contracts in place that is talked about as being unaffordable. So you need to remember that, okay? And now and who also was led the budget committee. And I think it's interesting that there's this perspective now. Maybe we've learned something from our mistakes. I support Measure B. I support it because I believe that people need to decide what level of service they want to have in their community. For public safety, for road repair, for support of our schools, I want the people to decide. Because I can tell you, if we do not have a shot in the arm like Measure B would provide to the city, and it's not a silver bullet, because frankly, it has a 10-year sunset, but it will help us. And I hope that future councils, when they look at this Measure B, if you decide to pass it, that it's managed well. Because if we're not going to be able to attract anybody to help us if we don't help ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you to the candidates for staying within the time limits, and we'll try to be as specific as we can about how much time is left. But when it does say wrap up, that means you got a couple of seconds left. And we're doing well as far as our time goes. Our second question, and this one will start with Mr. Davis. The Vallejo City Schools are probably the most influential factor in families deciding to locate in Vallejo, and are the first item businesses look at in deciding whether or not to come here. The schools are simply not up to par with other cities in the Bay Area and act as a deterrent to further growth in Vallejo. Even though as a council member you have no direct responsibility for the schools, what will you do if elected to correct this critical problem?
I have always said that as our schools go, so does our city. And it's absolutely critical that we have good schools if we're going to attract businesses to invest in our city. It's one of the first things that they ask. What I have done in the past is I've worked with through my 4 years in office, I've worked with 3 superintendents, the past 3, there's 4 now, all of a sudden there's the 4th one. But I worked with 3 superintendents doing what I could and lending the support of my office to do whatever they needed to get the job done at the schools, including having resource officers if that's what they wanted, having police assistance when they needed it, including going to schools and speaking to students myself, trying to encourage students to do their best in class, talking about my past and the opportunity for them to do whatever they wanted to do. And what I've come to the conclusion about is that I'm the mayor of the city. I'm not the superintendent of schools. And so what I've done now is I've started working closely with the new superintendent, Superintendent Bishop, who is very committed, very knowledgeable, and is doing a great job in terms of trying to turn our schools around right now. I've told her that my office is available to assist in whatever way she needs us, but she needs to tell me because I'm not the superintendent of schools. I'm willing to help and do whatever we can to use the influence of the mayor's office to make our schools better, including my own personal commitment.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell.
Education values drive property values. When I listen to my clients, they tell me they will not put their children back in the school district because of the problems that exist there. It's a huge, huge problem. One of the major things that can be done is the city council can actually start listening to, being involved with, and cooperating more with the school district superintendent and the school board. Currently, we have the liaison officer on every commission we have in the city. We have none for the city, school district, or the board. It's time we change that we have a standing, permanent, recognized liaison officer. Secondly, we can encourage schools to become supported by something called Vallejo Neighborhood Associations. You have one here, didn't you? A neighborhood association doesn't exist in every part of our city, but it can. It's recognized by the zoning ordinance. And it's where, when something impacts that neighborhood, they get notice of what's going on and have the opportunity to come down and make their positions known. If we recognize, encourage, and enable Vallejo neighborhood associations, they can also become involved with the school district and become a spokesperson, so that when that kid does break out your windows, you have a voice. If you don't have to join the PTA, your neighborhood association can be involved with it. But if we don't correct our problems with our school district, I don't care what any of us do at City Hall, it's not going to be enough. So working with the school district is an extremely important mission that I wish to pursue, because I recognize its value. I've come through the California educational system, grown up in this state, and I know how critical and valuable it is to the enhancement of our society. Thank you.
Super.
Thank you. The youth of our community, they are our future. We have to concern ourselves with our schools. Our schools are what are going to entice people to our city, to help us revitalize, to redevelop, and to bring our community back to its once glorious self. What I propose is this: we need to partner and collaborate with the school district. We need to come together and talk about working together in infrastructural issues, coming together with a plan that is going to be developed for the schools to entice our young people to stay in school, to not drop out. Although it is correct that the city council has no bearing on the school district, it does not say we cannot partner or collaborate with them. One of the programs that is happening currently that is being explored by the Vallejo Unified School District and Fighting Back Partnership is a program that is sponsored by the U.S. Department of Education. It's called Promise Neighborhoods. In that program, young people are going to be followed from cradle to college to career. Neighborhoods are going to be selected based on the ability of the children, whether or not they are of a school age and have a desire to want to learn. These children will be followed through. They will be supported by this program, which is funded again through the U.S. Department of Education, has over $30 million available for neighborhoods throughout the United States. Again, the city of Vallejo is looking at that, and it's going to be a very, very worthwhile program. Another thing that I would advocate for is a trade academy. A lot of young people that I've talked to said they are not interested in pursuing a college career, but want to become involved in the trades. Those two programs, I believe, are going to be extremely valuable for the future of our young people and, of course, revitalization of Vallejo. Thank you.
Thank you. The recovery of Vallejo is also dependent on the recovery of our schools. And yes, we have to find a way to work with the school district without usurping or supplanting the school board. Other cities with good schools have not suffered nearly as much in the recession as cities who have poor schools. Good schools produce a well-educated labor force that attracts business, reduces unemployment, and improves property values. For years, I have advocated partnering with the schools, GVRD, sand and flood, and the library to eliminate waste and reduce costs. We have never followed up on that. We have a group called the Interagency Committee that is unfortunately not much more than a discussion group. But the opportunity to work with schools has existed for a number of years. Now we must do it. Now I'm going to address another topic since I have 60 seconds. Yes, I voted for the previous contracts for our employees, as did many other councils for years. And we all voted based on the best information available at the time, staff recommendations, and a growing economy. In 2009, the council majority had the opportunity to wait until those contracts were vacated by the bankruptcy judge. They did not. So did they have to deal with the results? Yes. But they perpetuated the results. Contracts are in existence now. They bought.
That's okay.
You know, the comment has been made that the city council really has no influence over the schools, and I think that's a false statement. Being the only mother on the council and the only mother up here running for re-election, I'm very much concerned about the education of our students here in the community. I've raised my kids here. I've had to make tough choices about where they were educated. Having been educated in the public school system, that was certainly where I wanted my children to go. But the schools were not up to speed as far as I was concerned as a mother, and I wanted my children to have the best opportunities available to them for a quality education. But I've done something about that. I spent over a year and a half working with the Career Academy Master Plan Group, and we met every other Monday night for 2 hours and put together a Career Academy Master Plan program that was supported by the Ford Foundation, that is sitting with the new school superintendent to be implemented once they get through these changes that have occurred because of the consolidation of the high schools. That kind of came into the process that we were working on with the career academies, and unfortunately it took precedence. But I understand that because it's important when they're experiencing change that they need to be given the opportunity to really focus on making sure that that change is successful. So I'll continue my work with the Career Academy Master Plan. And if you don't know what that is, it's about creating small learning communities within our high schools. And it's taking a student from their freshman year to graduation and off onto a career or a college education in a career path such as hospitality, biotech. We have a multimedia career academy also that works with VCAT that is in the house. Say hi, James. My other work most recently in the last year has been with the Vallejo Business Education Alliance, and it's made up of schools. Okay. Supporting our schools is important for the future of Vallejo. We need educated youth. We need to, and it's going to be helpful for you in your property tax values. Of course, you want a school here, and I don't blame you, and I'll work to fight to get you one.
I think if we look at schools and we think about schools in the way that we educate our kids in the community of the city of Vallejo, we're looking at it all wrong if it's just an isolated approach where we think the school is going to be responsible for educating the kids. Really what we need to be talking about is how do we create a learning environment throughout the city, and how do we support learning opportunities for kids. So what I would be interested in doing if elected to the council is creating an alliance between city government and the schools. The students, they need mentors. They also need opportunities to experience workplace activities. They need to have jobs and different things like that. All those things help motivate kids to be more successful in school. Without inspiration, we can do all the talking we want. We can put them in front of a teacher with books. They can have the best technology. If they're not inspired, they're never ever going to learn. And so I think the city council and the influence that we have and the leadership role that we have we can make that change. Currently, I don't manage a school district, but I work really closely with the school district in my everyday job. In fact, next Wednesday, we're going to be signing an MOU where the kids at 4:15, when they're let out from school, they're going to come over to the rec center that we run, and they'll have a combination of athletic activities and enrichment activities. These are the types of partnerships that we can do in Vallejo. GBRD is a resource that we can use. The city council, we can use our influence to bring folks to the table and have these conversations about how do we partner to make a great product, learning product for the kids of our community. I think it's something that we all have to be invested in, something I'm definitely committed to. The youngest person in this room right now is my brother. He's getting a lesson in politics 101 right now, and this is what I would be committed to doing. Inspiring young folks to get involved in their community, be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem.
Well, I think it's becoming obvious that there's a consensus here at the table from the various speakers. The Vallejo school system is not perfect, but we do have good leadership in place to try and deal with the problems of the school. There's the issue of dropout rate. Although that particular issue could be debated, when they say we have a 40% dropout rate, that number includes students that are being transferred. They're not failing academically, but they're counted in the statistics. But even so, the dropout rate is still high. So there's still a lot that could be done in a partnership between the city and the school district. It's time for us to stop saying that the city has no jurisdiction over the school district. That might be technically correct, but it doesn't mean we stop working and trying to help each other. There are many problems in the schools, including discipline, sometimes untoward behavior. If you go to Jesse Bethel, you're going to see temporary buildings in the parking lot. So we're a long ways away from getting to where we want to be. But the wrong thing to do is to give up and not address the issues.
Thank you. The third question, we're going to start with Ms. Hannigan. And the question is as follows. The Navy left Vallejo in 1996, and with it took the life out of downtown Vallejo. Since then, the city entered into an agreement with Triad to resurrect the downtown, which subsequently fell apart and has resulted in litigation between the city and Triad. If elected, what are you going to do about developing downtown into a desirable, useful area of which we all can be proud?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. I'd say the downfall of downtown started way before that. It started during the redevelopment of the downtown in the 70s, and they tore down some beautiful buildings in the under the guise of improving the infrastructure, the sewers, the drains, the streets, and this, that, and the other, including a Carnegie Library and a Julia Morgan home. So I would say it started then when they cut off Georgia Street to Mare Island Way, preventing retail traffic from moving up Georgia Street and permeating the downtown. I'd also say that it occurred then as well because they dropped in 201 Main, which is a multi-housing complex that is a HUD project. There are many problems downtown right now. We've got a lot of vacancies, we've got crime issues, and we, as of late, we have an influx of medical marijuana dispensaries. The visions that Triad brought to City Hall for downtown, I think, were grand. I think they were something, certainly something that you could grab onto. But without addressing the crime issues, without making it a place where property owners or business owners can make a living downtown, I don't know how we're going to see this influx. So what I'd like to do is do what we're doing on the north end of Mare Island, and that is put out a request for qualifications where we're actually looking for developers who are going to show us the money, that they have the money, and then let's talk about the plans. And let's, as a community, work to develop what our downtown, how we want our downtown to look. And I think it's important for all of us in here in this room. I know I practice it, and that is to shop Vallejo first, frequent our stores in downtown Vallejo. Without us, they're not going to survive, and we will continue to talk about How are we going to revitalize downtown Vallejo forever and ever and ever? And, you know, this is a cycle that we do need to stop. So I'd be in favor of putting forward a RFQ and so continuing to support our downtown businesses, and I'd like to see you all down there.
I agree that the RFQ is a good way to go. It solicits feedback from the developer about what their qualifications are for actually pulling off the development project that they're proposing. I also think that we have to update our general plan. We have to, as a city, be really creative in coming up with ideas for how we drive traffic to the downtown area. What's the best activity to take place there is a question that we have to ask, and then we have to make sure that we put it there. Without foot traffic, it's not going to be a go, period. We need shoppers. And so I would be open to putting out an RFQ and soliciting folks to come back with ideas for with their qualifications, and then we can talk about ideas. We know the Cal Maritime was interested at one point in potentially coming down to the downtown area. I think it's a great opportunity. I went to grad school in New York. My campus was right on 23rd and Lexington, and it really infused that particular area because we had thousands of young folks walking around spending money and hanging out in that area. I think we have to figure out how do we do that in Vallejo? How do we draw traffic to that area? And there's planners that could, certainly smarter than me, that could provide feedback. But I think first things first is to look at bringing more folks to the table who would be potentially interested in developing the downtown.
Prior to the state voting to scuttle the RDA, after they have passed legislation on SB 26 and SB 27, RDA was a great way to rehabilitate our community. Blighted does not mean a house in a bad neighborhood that's boarded up. Blighted could mean a section, an entire section of the town that has gotten so old and antiquated that it needs to be rebuilt. RDAs, if you look at the waterfront in Suisun City, all of Highway 12, all the improvements there. If you drive on I-80 heading east to Fairfield, Vacaville, Dixon, west and east of the freeway, go on to 505 where Genentech is. All of those are RDAs over the last 3 decades. What happened to us here in Vallejo? RDA was a great way for communities to sustain improvement, and we did not take advantage of that. Unfortunately, SB 26 killed RDA, but 27 gives us a reprieve where if we pay a certain percentage, and this is what the state government wants to do, we pay a percentage of the taxes in an RDA area, and that money will go to fund schools in California. That's what the state wants to do, because they cannot fund it anymore. So perhaps even if RDA is dead, the alternative might be an option for us.
Our downtown, excuse me, our downtown is going to be developed based upon what we do on our waterfront. I really believe that as we develop the waterfront, it will move up into downtown. We have a number of people who are coming in our city every single day on the ferry, coming and leaving, and there are no services for them other than the ferry and the bus. It seems to me that we need to direct our attention to developing the waterfront in an area right there by the ferry so that people coming in will have places to shop, places to eat, and things to do when they come and wait for the ferry. If you go to San Francisco and you get off the ferry, you have everything there at the ferry terminal. we can do the same thing here in Vallejo. And as you develop the waterfront and the area where the ferry is, that development would automatically go right up into downtown all the way and develop the entire downtown. So I think that's important that we go forward with that kind of development. I have been active and assertive in talking to developers regarding an investment in downtown, including the Maritime Academy and other developers. As a matter of fact, there is a developer who has been looking at downtown recently who has done some great things in our city. And so I think that it's imperative that we try to encourage people to come and see our city. I have actually gone out and talked to other businesses, brought them downtown, had them look at downtown, and tried to encourage them to get involved. So I think it's incumbent upon all of us to be assertive. That is, the council and our economic development department to be assertive in our efforts to rebuild our city.
Let's talk about the first part of that question, which was the litigation tried. I had many battles with them when we were developing Hiddenbrooke out here. They're a worthy opponent. They stick to their principles, but they're not unreasonable. The reason that the contract was rescinded by the city was that they felt they were taking too long to develop the downtown. There is a possibility for settlement discussions. Settlement is certainly much less expensive than trial, and certainly much more certain as to its outcome. The longer we can continue with that litigation, the more it ties up the downtown, the less we can do about it. In the meantime, there are a number of other things that can be done. A number of those buildings downtown are owned by private concerns. You're not going to be able to get requests for proposals or qualifications from them. Instead, you're going to have to work with them. The big problem with that is the fact that they're not earthquake proof. It's very expensive to earthquake a building. The only way that's going to be able to be changed is to go to the state legislature and see if you can get exemptions because of the economic impact of downtown. Secondly, we have a lot of artist lofts down there, live workspaces. They have historically expanded an area. They did so in Venetia. The problem is that when they move in and they put their effort into the improvement of these buildings, they then get kicked out because the property becomes too valuable. The only way to make sure they're protected is to give them longevity in leases. Another way to develop the downtown is through historical tourism. I come from a town called Nevada City, and like Vallejo, it ran into economic problems. It wasn't until it brought in new people, new thinking, and started to embrace the fact that they had a tremendous asset in the historical background that they began to make money. We have 131 years of maritime naval history here in Vallejo. That's most of the western expansion, and we've done nothing with it. So we can also develop the downtown with historical tourism, and I think those buildings downtown lend itself to them very much.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. The downtown development, that topic has been going on for years and years and years and years. The sad part is that it really hasn't gone anywhere. One of the first things that I talked about when I talked to people out on the street regarding our downtown was, number one, the current status of our economy does not lend to immediate development. So we have to start thinking short-term and long-term as to what type of businesses we wish to attract. Another issue that is unfortunately plaguing the downtown is the perception that it is thug-ridden, an unsafe place to go, and nobody wants to go down there because there's nothing to do but get mud. And that is a very, very sad thing to hear about our beautiful community of Vallejo. That perception has to change. Now with the influx of the MMDs, the medical marijuana dispensaries, they have plagued the downtown area with buyers. There have been several shootings on Sonoma Boulevard in front of one of those MMDs. There have been robberies in front of the MMDs. So those types of perceptions need to go away. And we need to clean up the image and bring Vallejo back to its beautiful and glorious self. We need to market Vallejo as a city in transition that does have a vibrant waterfront, a place where people will soon be able to go. We need to have an anchor business downtown that will attract people, that will have folks come to visit and say, this town is trying to transition into something that is attractive for everyone concerned. The idea of the RFQs, request for qualifications, is an excellent idea, and we have to thank our economic development director for putting that program together. Because now we can look at people's qualifications before they come in and put in a store that might only last for a month to 6 months. Thank you.
Thank you. The downfall of downtown started long before Georgia Street was closed off. Years ago, Vallejo was the commercial and shopping center of Solano County, and there was no parking downtown. So the then city council, in its infinite wisdom, decided that the way to move cars out of the parking spots was to put in parking meters. So they did. That meant when Larwin Plaza opened, which is now Vallejo Plaza, and had plenty of parking, many of the downtown businesses moved out there. There are a lot of people in Vallejo who think the way to cure the problem downtown is with a bulldozer. I don't happen to agree with that. I think we have some splendid architecture down there that needs to be preserved, and I think there are ways of doing it. A few years ago, I worked with a group who wanted to revitalize downtown through the arts, and one of the other speakers has somewhat alluded to that. Artists come into a building with little or no rent and do cosmetic improvements on it. No rehab, nothing, just paint things to make it look better, and they open a gallery. We did have that briefly in downtown Vallejo, and it was successful. And the reason it didn't continue is because the property owners downtown were not interested in it. So I think part of the secret to getting downtown back on its feet is having an interest by the people who own property down there. The old Masonic Temple is about to be converted, and I think that that will probably have an impact on improving the downtown. Would like to say that I was a leading advocate for reopening Georgia Street. Previous councils had thought that closing it was the best way to get rid of the stigma down there. Didn't work.
Thank you. The fourth question, we're going to start with Ms. Shively. And the question is as follows. In 1993, Mare Island closed, and with it took the economic engine out of Vallejo. In World War II, I'm told there were 44,000 workers on Mare Island. Today, there are 90 businesses with 2,000 jobs. If elected, what will you do to make Mare Island reach its potential?
I'm glad I get to do this one first. Yes, Mare Island did close. And the city worked very closely with Lennar in the early years when Lennar was here. In 2002, we were able to effect the first early transfer that ever occurred for any closed military base. In 2002, the original cleanup schedule was 5 to 10 years and $57 million. Now, it's going to take 3 more years and total $100 million. So to accelerate Mare Island development, I would work more closely with Lennar, as the city did prior to 2002. And the reason for that is that much of the work that's done there is with other governmental agencies. The Department of Defense, the U.S. Navy, the Base Realignment and Closure Group. And when you are working with other governmental agencies, it is essential to have a governmental agency in the lead. The city backed off from being that lead governmental agency after 2002 and kind of left Lennar hanging out there on their own, saying it's all up to you. That does not work. We have to reestablish key relationships with state and federal decision makers and regulators. And we have to work with the Navy, which will take the city's leadership to secure additional funding and provide a schedule commitment. We also have to reestablish the Mare Island Conversion District division within the city, which Lennar will fund. So there's a great deal that the city can do to accelerate that.
Well, there's a saying that says you can't have an up without a down. And if it wasn't for the housing bust, I don't believe that Lennar Mare Island would be looking at bringing additional jobs to the city. I think they'd still be focused on building homes. So I'm really pleased with the outcome of, in some ways there's a silver lining, right, to a housing bust. What's happened with Mare Island, and you heard this from Jim, and that was we have almost 90 companies out there and over 2,000 jobs, which we haven't seen in years. 149 of them were brought on, excuse me, I got a dry throat, in the last 6 months. So that's good news for us. Really what we've talked about up here, and I think a lot of us will talk about that on the campaign, is bringing jobs to the community. Excuse me. And actually it's happening on Mare Island. So that's what I think we need to be focused on. It's an industrial site. It needs to be used as an industrial site to create jobs, whether it's ship dismantling, whether it's working with the fabrication of steel, whether it's working to build bridges and piers. That's what we need to focus on. Oh my gosh, excuse me. The RFQ process for the north end of the island, I think, is the right direction for us to go. Credit has been given to our new economic development director, Ursula, and I think that's the right place for it to be because she has really looked at our issues on Mare Island. I personally have been working with our new Congressman, Mike Thompson, and as he comes on board to oversee the city of Vallejo in his role, and that is to focus on the jobs at the Allied Defense Recycling. We need to have a level playing field so we can get more of those ships to help us, and I apologize for my voice. I'm going to end there.
I would like to first start off by saying there's some good things going on. We heard about the jobs that exist there now, the businesses, but I think that real revitalization will happen when we figure out how we get that place cleaned up. And I do agree that we do have to take a leadership role working with the Navy and other governmental bodies to ensure that that's happening and happening in a timely way. Secondly, the RFQ process is a great way to solicit requests from developers and potential businesses that would want to move to Mare Island, and I think we should continue that. The third thing that I want to say about Mare Island is I think we have a great opportunity to maintain some of the industrial uses, and we have to look to the future. What does industry in the United States look like? And I happen to think that we should be exploring green tech. We should be building electric cars on the island. Why not? Building solar plant facilities out there on the island to not only reduce our footprint, environmental footprint here in the city, but also to create jobs and good paying jobs and jobs of the future. So if elected, those would be things that I would work on. And I think having a strong economic development department and good economic development staff will afford us the opportunity to go out and solicit some of these businesses that we hope to see there. But I do think that it could be a job center again, but it will ultimately start with making sure the place is clean.
When I was a lieutenant, I was the controller and supply officer of the Navy School, Mare Island. And I saw the beauty of some of the buildings on the island. I look at Mare Island as another diamond in the rough. And it's not a total loss like you might want to believe. Lennar's on the island, they built beautiful homes on the island. The golf course is being rebuilt. Recently, we have a motorhome manufacturer getting ready to move in on the island. I heard about 190 jobs or so. The railroad track is alive and well and being managed. So it's not a complete loss, but the north end of Mare Island is where we have that huge piece of land, about 157 acres, where the current RFQ is focused now. And I think it's a great thing because now we've learned after 2 failed attempts to do due diligence. We should have done that the first couple of times with Touro University and with Mare Island Studios. We didn't do it. We issued exclusive rights to negotiate and pretty much made it exclusive to them that they failed to deliver. And the city is absolutely correct. We can't do that now. We need to do diligence. We need to dig into the records, potential investors and developers that will come to the north end of Mare Island and take a look at them up front and find out if they're for real or not. They also say where there's water, there's life. We got San Pablo Bay, we got the Napa River. On the east side of the water, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous. We have restaurants, we have a ferry, but it's pretty much lifeless on the west side, closer to the bays. So there's an enormous potential to improve that portion of Mare Island, and the city council will be the one to take the lead in this one.
Let me start by saying there's so much going on and so many opportunities at Mare Island that I cannot answer this question in 2 minutes, but I'm just going to give you something real quick, and if you want to talk about it afterwards, I'm certainly willing to do that. But understand that Mare Island owns about 2/3 of the developable land on Mare Island. And so the city has about 200 acres at the north end that we put out in RFQ. We're already doing many of the things that we need to do to make Mare Island reach its potential, and that does not mean that we don't need to do more. We need to do a lot more. The council just approved, as you are aware, an RFQ for the north end of Mare Island. That's the 157 plus or minus another 25 or so acres on the north end. Lennar is focused on bringing businesses and industrial type businesses to Mare Island, and they've been doing what they could along those lines. I have been assertive, and I was assertive, and participated with Allied Defense Recycling in getting them certified to operate on Mare Island. That means attending all the hearings with the regulatory agencies and doing what I could on a personal level and through the office of the mayor to make that happen. My vision for Mare Island is a green tech island, totally. And if you think about that for a moment, a green tech island would become a green tech North American facility, so that anything you wanted green tech you could find at Mare Island. That would create thousands of jobs. It would create a financial base that would establish our city financially on into the future. If we, in fact, move in that direction, I think that we can then use the synergy from Mare Island to the waterfront to downtown, and so goes our city. There's a lot to be done in that regard, and we're working on it right now. Solar is not something new for Mare Island. We've already started talking about solar and other green tech, electric cars, and so on.
For the 8 years I spent on the planning commission, Lennar and Mare Island took up a considerable amount of time. Mare Island is actually divided up into 3 different areas. It's got the area where Touro is, the center part, and the north end. And they all have unique problems. They all need to be addressed differently. For the north end, it's an open palette right now. And a lot of what goes in there will depend upon the skills of our economic developer and the business skills of our business manager and our city manager, who hopefully will not frighten away some businesses that have occurred in the past. The central part is really where the industrial section is located, Also contained within that is the Vallejo Historical Museum from Mare Island. And again, I believe historical tourism can bring a lot of money to the central part of the area. Central part of the area is also where the houses are located. And now that we've put in 220 houses out there, we're going to have to protect their interests, which means we're restricted on the noise level as to what we can do out there. Green technology will help, but it's not the only one. This is the far end of Mare Island. Is really where our maritime industry can be concentrated. We have the California Maritime Academy here. And education, institutions of higher learning attract talent, they attract skills, and that in turn attracts research and development. We can partner with the California Maritime Academy to further develop our maritime research industry, to do the skills and the studies that are necessary to keep the maritime industry competitive and able to compete in our world. If we can expand not only Turo, but possibly the California Maritime Academy as well, which are our major institutions, who knows, we might even be able to turn 201 into student housing.
Mare Island, and I'm going to use Mr. McAuliffe saying, is a diamond in the rough. It's a beautiful facility. It has a lot of room to grow, and can be developed. Positively, we're looking at it as what? We see light rail, we see shipping, receiving, we see ship repair, ship dismantling, we see warehouses. This railroad system that is there now is moving throughout the island and can deliver goods throughout the state of California. I've talked to the owner of this railroad company, and his primary focus is to use Mare Island as a central receiving point and as a central shipping point where products can be moved in and around our area of California, as well as, again, up and down the coast and out of state. Again, these would bring jobs. This would bring more economy and money and tax dollars to the city of Vallejo. So again, positive things are going on in Mare Island. One of the things that I believe the city has to do is offer enticements to attract businesses to our community, to come up to Vallejo and look. And these have to be qualified businesses, as has been said in the past, the RFQ, request for qualification. So we do bring in positive businesses that are here for the growth of Vallejo, that are going to bring in the tax dollar and the jobs. We need to consider bringing in large anchor stores or development similar to what was done in Manteca with the Bass Pro. Cabela's has been looking at Mare Island. They've looked at it several times, and I can't encourage that enough so that we can have other businesses that would surround it and bring in, again, more to our economy of Vallejo and attract folks for jobs, those jobs being for our folks here that live here in town. I also agree with the idea of attracting green businesses. This is the way to develop the island, bring in money, and bring in the tax dollars that's desperately needed for our revitalization. Thank you.
And our fifth question will be for Mr. Sampaio. Both the police and fire contracts come up for renewal in 2012. Currently, the city provides inadequate police and fire services to the entire community, and especially Hiddenbrooke. If elected, what will you do to correct that situation?
Well, that was kind of serendipitous, being a retired police officer. Yes. Where are we going with that? The first thing that's been said is that, wow, we've cut our police department nearly in half. We've cut our fire department drastically. One of the things that I believe that we need to do is, one, reorganize the police department. We have the ability to field more cars out there. Maybe not with sworn peace officers, but we do have the ability to field more cars. One of the things that I believe in is that we can use civilian personnel that are trained as CSOs, community service officers, that will be out taking the cold reports that people wait forever to have an officer respond to. This would free up the officers for proactive patrol. These civilian personnel could also be used in minor traffic accidents, non-injury. They could be used in theft cases. They could be available to assist officers in follow-up and neighborhood checks. They are not going to be out there to be used as ancillary police officers, but they will be available to assist the officers, again, freeing the officers up for proactive duties. Another issue is using the police reserves, the unpaid police officers that work part-time for the police department. The police reserve program was a tremendous asset to the agency. These folks are aspiring police officers and have full-time police officer status when they are working. These folks could do our prisoner transportation for us up to Fairfield. They can assist the officers in backup calls. They would also be additional vehicles out on the street, the black and whites, that will show additional patrols. Again, this would free our regular officers up for more proactive duties. One of the things that I truly believe in is that with reorganization, we'll be able to field as many police officers as we once had. We will see more vehicles out on the street, and will be a reduction in crime. Thank you.
We need to restructure and reorganize not only the police department, but the entire city government of the city of Vallejo. It has not been restructured or reorganized for probably 50 years. There have been little nibbles at it here and there, and a few changes have occurred. But it needs to be completely redone. And that was one of the goals when we were in bankruptcy, to restructure city government. That has not occurred. We have contracts that are completely unsustainable. All across this country, cities, counties, states have been cutting employees' wages and benefits. At the same time, the city council majority approved contracts that gave raises to police and middle management here in Vallejo. That sound like maybe we're a little out of sync with everybody else? It should. Many city employees make more than $100,000 a year, get free or reduced health care costs, can retire in their 50s with pensions far greater than the private sector. We can improve public safety, restore city services, and still live within our means without new sales taxes by creating contracts that we can afford. We can't afford what we've got now. Doesn't matter if Palo Alto can afford what they've got or San Jose can or can't. Vallejo cannot afford what we have. We have to change contracts, including pension reform. There are a lot of ways to improve that. I'm running out of time, but there's stuff like having employees work longer, contribute more to their pensions, contribute to their health costs, etc. And here comes Mr. Lydian to take the mic.
My assistant to my right. I think there's a lot we can do to improve our ability to provide public safety services to the community, particularly in areas that are underserved, such as Hiddenbrooke, Mare Island, Glen Cove. It's been unfortunate that with our economic downturn, the one thing that the city's supposed to provide for our community is public safety services. That is the one thing we have to provide as a city, and we haven't done a good job at it over the last 4 years. We just did not have the funding for it. But I think what has happened is when we went from 127 sworn officers in 2007 when I was first elected to 90 to 95, actually where we are right now with the ARA grant, we've had to consolidate the patrol officers into one vehicle and to make some other cuts to the types of services that we provide in both our fire and police services. I would never pretend that I'm going to be an expert in providing police services and tell somebody how to reorganize. But what I do see is an opportunity, and it's an opportunity to leverage technology so that as we grow our department, we can grow our department utilizing technology versus additional bodies and putting that into the advantage of our community. We've got a a prostitution problem in our downtown, and one of the things that's really helped is the influx of cameras that have been, surveillance cameras that have been placed in very strategic locations, and having monitors to those cameras inside dispatch and actually inside the patrol cars to help those neighbors keep the prostitutes and the johns out of their neighborhood. I'd like to look at consolidating dispatch for both fire and police with our neighboring cities, much like we've done with our bus transit system, Soul Trans, which is consolidated bus services with the city of Benicia. I think it's important that we start thinking outside the box and we look at other ways to leverage our resources. Thank you.
Best crime prevention program is education. I just want to go on record as saying that. And I want to underscore my support for schools and making schools better here in the community. But in terms of what I would do if elected to the council, specifically to increase public safety in the community, number one, I would look at definitely restructuring the department. It's not something that I have expertise in, but I would ask for the city manager to bring back a plan through the police chief for how we would adequately serve the community here. And I would hope that that would include looking at regionalization of services. When I worked in King County, I worked for the county executive there. And what he realized was that the county department, they were really good at solving long-term crimes. And then what they also realized was that the city of Seattle, they were really good at solving crimes like right away. So if there was a murder within the first 48 hours, Seattle had a better team than the county's sheriff. So what he started to do was work on a plan in which they would swap services. And it was a way to regionalize the policing, because one thing that we have to keep in mind, criminals, they don't care where they're at. They commit a crime and then they'll cross a boundary. So if we are successful in dealing with crime here, they're probably just going to move somewhere else. And then at some point, if the neighboring city is good at dealing with crime, they might end up moving back. So I think long term, we have to look at how we partner with other agencies to adequately address crime, not just from a city standpoint, but from a regional standpoint.
Just a few nights ago, at dinner, I was sitting next to 4 women who have young children. And most of them try to get their kids into charter schools. And by the time their kids are leaving the 8th grade, they were telling me they are leaving town. That is sad. Not too long ago, a beauty parlor was hit by 2 men. They robbed all the customers. In my own neighborhood, there's been a couple of break-ins. And let's get real here. Aren't we all taking a look at our doors and windows at night before we go to bed? We have a problem in the city of Vallejo. So I think it's inevitable that we need to look, how creative can we be with 95 police officers? At some point, we need to really take a hard look. And that's what we are all saying here at this table. We need to improve our economy. Let's talk about jobs. Let's talk about investors. Let's be proactive, and we can send our RFQs, but we could also do the opposite. We could go out and seek them out. Let's really sell and market our city. It's time. It's time to do that. Unless you get the revenue, everything we want to do is a wish list. Improving public safety, partnering with the schools. If you do not have the money, folks, it ain't going to happen. So, crime in particular, policing in particular, Bob Sampayan gave the prime years of his life as a police officer. He knows more than I do, but it doesn't take a genius to figure out that we have a problem and something has to be done.
I want to first say that crime is not restricted to Vallejo, California. Crime is a problem all over the country and everywhere. We tend to look at it more because we have the stigma of bankruptcy. It does not mean that we don't have to deal with it. We do have to deal with it. But one of the things that I think, and it's been proven by statistics, you don't stop crime just because you have 200 police officers as opposed to 150 police officers. But it is necessary to have an adequate level of police services. Without funding an adequate police department, you obviously are going to have more problems. Nonetheless, since we don't have the money, we can't sit back and lament the fact that we can't hire the number of police officers that we'd like to have. We have to do other things. And some of those things we've already done. And that is, we began to work with the sheriff department to help in patrolling various areas of our city. We worked with other police agencies. For example, I've specifically talked to and worked with the city of Fairfield, and they've agreed to help the city of Vallejo out, for example, in our prostitution stings and things of that nature. We have to start being creative in other ways. For example, cameras in strategic locations, consolidated dispatch, those kinds of things that allows us to maximize the police force that we have to better serve our community. And even more than that, I've always said that if you had 5,000 police officers, you're not going to stop crime. You need also the input of people in the community. So community watch groups are absolutely crucial in making our community safe. And I think there's one thing that we've all learned here in Hiddenbrooke, and that is when you have a good community watch, you have a better safety record in your own community. And that's something that we can implement throughout the city along with other ways in which to reduce crime by technology.
Over the years, I've been a deputy district attorney. I've been a law clerk for the U.S. Court of Appeals, where I reviewed hundreds of thousands of pages on criminal convictions. I fought fires. I've been a combat rifleman in Vietnam. I know it's like to be shot at and shoot back. The only way we're going to be able to provide effective safety personnel is a series of, number one, downsizing the cost of the department itself. 22 people will be retiring in January or February, so they can pick up this year's retirement credit as well. And we will be hiring new people at a lower rate. The Personnel Board in Sacramento did nothing but study wages, compensations, and standards. A lot more of it's just a salary, believe me. We're going to have to be very innovative in the delivery of police services. There are two things that a police officer with a badge and a gun can do that you and I cannot do. They can take away your liberty, and they can kill you. Everything else can be done by a non-sworn personnel. If we just keep bringing in personnel who are sworn and carry a badge, we will have to maintain that higher level of compensation, because when you do that type of work, which is hard and demanding, you've got to pay them the proper salary. But one thing I'm not going to do is agree to another 6.29% increase, particularly while we're in a repayment plan. It's going to last for another 5 years. Fire is another issue. Unfortunately, they should have built a firehouse at the top of the hill rather than the bottom of the hill, because having fought fire, I can tell you how long it takes to get a truck up the hill with a lot of water in it. Since it's too late to do that, what I suggest is we put some equipment up here, and we give the fire officials a very fast car, so they can get up through that equipment and get to you a lot faster. Another way is to start looking at the possibility of taking paramedics off of fire trucks, instead having medics personnel who are trained as a medic. Because when you need help, you need it fast, and I would much rather have a medic than a paramedic.
That's the end of the 5 questions, right? All right, everybody take a breath for a minute here before we move on. I want to acknowledge, and I should have done this at the outset, but I want to acknowledge our public officials who are here this evening who are not running for office. Pam Keith, who's a trustee of the Solano School Board, Solano Junior College School Board. Rick Meisenheimer, who's a member of the Greater Blair Recreation District. Marty Brown and Stephanie Gomes, both of the Blair Center. I'd also like to note for the public that we invited all of the candidates to come tonight, and two of the candidates did not come for whatever reason, but everybody was invited. So the ones who are here are the ones who are here. And then the other thing, the most important item is that the bar is going to remain open. If you've had enough of this, and you want to get a drink, they'd be happy to sell you one. And as the mayor said, a number of candidates, I think, will stay around a little bit afterwards, and you can address your questions individually.
Give him a big round of applause, because this is not easy.
All right, so for questions from the audience, we received a number of questions, and a lot of these questions have already been addressed in one way or another. Probably nothing's been addressed completely, but they were addressed in one way or another. One question for the panel is, what do you think should be done about the empty buildings in downtown? Let's start with Mr. Moldova.
That's a really tough question. There's a lot of beautiful architecture downtown. Although some of the buildings are non-compliant, it's a really, really tough issue, particularly for the owners of those buildings. There's no simple answer to that. It's going to require a study. It's going to require a consensus. Perhaps some inputs from different sectors of the community, particularly the people who are in downtown, the Merchants Association. So that's a real tough question to answer.
That's why we asked you.
There are some buildings downtown that are salvageable and some that are not salvageable. Some that have some historic value, and I think that we ought to maintain those that we can, and we ought to get rid of the ones that we can't. I think the simple answer to it is the filling. And that is, we have to be active in trying to develop, as we talked about earlier, economic development downtown, so that we can in fact fill those buildings with tenants, commercial, retail, and likewise. I think it's a great opportunity for someone who has a plan for developing downtown to use a lot of those buildings, because they offer so much character and so many opportunities at a reduced cost for the developer. So I think we need to look at them in terms of trying to maintain them and use them for economic development purposes.
One of the things you have to look at is whether it's a private property or public property. We have a lot more control over public property than we do private. With private, there are a number of problems. One is, of course, the retrofitting for the earthquake standards. Secondly, is the fact that the tax code makes it very favorable to depreciate a building. So, let's encourage new people to move here. Recently, we've revised our fees that the building department charges. Here's a novel idea. Everybody complains about how long it takes for them to get a business application approved by the city, all the contradictory comments they're told by building and planning. Let's give them this. We'll give you a $10 fee for your first year of your business license, and you get it back if it doesn't get approved within 30 days. That ought to bring in some new business as well. Historical tourism will attract business downtown. We also need to think about code enforcement. There are a number of buildings downtown that are not only non-compliant, but are terribly out of compliance. And to address that, we need an efficient, centralized code enforcement office. In planning, we realized that code enforcement was divided between the police, fire, the building, and the planning departments. That's not right. It needs to be one phone number, one contact, one department, where they actually are going to go out and do something. They allege that they are complaint-driven. I think that's wrong. I think that they need to be active, be proactive, and go out and look at buildings and take action on their own without waiting for somebody to pick up the phone and make a complaint. Thank you.
Our downtown is coupled to numerous factors. Obviously, the economy. That's one of the biggest things right now. However, we have a beautiful, vibrant waterfront that is there for all of us to enjoy. Developing our downtown also connects to our waterfront. If we can bring in business to our waterfront, develop that as an area where we will have tourism arriving to Vallejo, and coupling that to our downtown where we can have the shops, the small businesses, I believe is going to bring about a dramatic change in the perception of our downtown area. One of the problems that we do have, and it was mentioned by Mr. McConnell, are the buildings that are privately owned. We do have buildings down there that need retrofitting. Is there a way that we, the city, can assist in this retrofitting? Is there a way where we can defer some of the taxes that people have to pay so that they will be able to be enticed to come downtown and become a part of that economy? We have to find a way to attract and entice businesses down there that are going to be there for the people, that are going to be there for downtown Vallejo to show that it is a beautiful area and will always be a beautiful area. Thank you.
Well, most of what I have written down has already been mentioned.
Sorry.
That's okay. We do have in place a vacant and abandoned building ordinance. Do we want to use that downtown and punish people who are already struggling? Doesn't seem like a really good idea. So we have it, but I'm certainly not going to promote use of it. Doesn't mean that we need to leave the buildings sitting the way they are forever, but I do think we need to have some respect for those property owners who were brave enough to come into Vallejo 5 to 10 years ago and buy buildings downtown, invest in the downtown, and really invest in our future. So many of those buildings are privately owned. They're not the same owners as they were 10 or more years ago. So I am going to make another pitch for revitalizing downtown through the arts. We have what was called a Phantom Gallery concept, worked very well. The problem was getting property owners who were interested in it. Maybe we should try that again, and maybe we'll have better luck because we have new property owners. It's very simple. Artists come in, they paint the place, they make it look good. In exchange, they get free or very inexpensive rent for 6 months to a year, whatever they can negotiate. When a viable tenant comes along, they agree to move, and the idea is they move to another building that needs to be improved. It has worked beautifully in Tucson. It worked so well in Sonoma that the artists that came in on the plaza in downtown Sonoma wound up having to move because they couldn't afford the rent. So if it can work there, it can certainly work here. That would also encourage tourism. We also need to tie the downtown to one of our most neglected parts of Vallejo, our marina. Many cities would kill to have a marina and a waterfront. Ours gets treated like a stepchild. Our marina needs dredging. We can tie tourism and the downtown and the arts all together, but we have to make an effort to do it. We have to have property owners that are willing to invest in Vallejo.
Jim, can I have an extra 10 seconds? Downtown, there have been many organizations that have been working individually and collectively on making downtown a vibrant destination for Vallejoans and tourists. I think if we as Vallejoans don't believe in our downtown, I don't know how we're going to expect tourists to believe in our downtown. So I really think it's going to have to start with us. Two of those organizations that are currently operating are the CCRC, which is a membership of the building owners, and the Vallejo Main Street, which works with the merchants. And together they have worked on safety issues and providing the farmers market. I don't know if you all go to the farmers market on Saturday mornings. It's 52 weeks a year, rain or shine. And we get a fabulous turnout every Saturday morning between the hours of 9 and 1. Where are those people the rest of the week? In the evening and during the week and on the weekends? I'm not sure, they kind of go away. The long-term vision for downtown Vallejo is to be a vibrant arts and entertainment district, and for it to be anchored by the Empress Theater. And I think it's a beautiful vision, and I think it's certainly one that we need to work towards. I think what we have, though, is an economy that's working against us at the moment, and I think we have property owners who, while they would want to fill their buildings with stores, are finding that nobody's interested in coming to them. But what are they doing? They're actually charging 3 times the rent and putting in a medical marijuana dispensary. And that we really have to address that problem in downtown and throughout the city. When we talk about the medical marijuana dispensary ordinance, never do we hold the property owners accountable for the fact that they are putting an illegal business in their space. And if there's anybody in the city that I think is more responsible than property owners in our city, please tell me who they are, because I'm not sure. I really believe that we need to put a very stiff ordinance and regulations on property owners for putting MMDs. If we could support the Mad Hatter Festival, it was a new festival last year, and the Pirates Festival, and bring those entities to the downtown area, I think we could help. But it's going to take all of us to collectively. We're not going to get tourists down here if we as the citizens of Vallejo don't go.
I would start with having a conversation with the property owners of downtown, solicit their ideas for why or why not, why are they attracting tenants or why not. And I would try to get a plan of action developed based on the data that they give. I think just from frequenting the downtown area, I would say we as a city could keep that area much more clean, keep the trees cut back, keep the curbs painted red in the places where they're supposed to be red, and just try to make the area more attractive. But I think we will have an issue in filling those buildings because it's a function of the negative economy, a product of the negative economy right now. So I guess my answer is, what I would do with the buildings is hopefully fill it, but I think there's more studying that needs to take place and conversations with the actual landowners.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting close to the end of this, and I want to leave one more opportunity for our candidates to go around the table and take 2 minutes and tell us anything you want to tell us about yourself, your campaign, what you think ought to be done, or something you forgot earlier in the evening. Let's start with Mr. McConnell.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you for the kind attention you've given to all of us. It's very gratifying to see you all here, because I know you're interested in the city as we all are up here. What made me decide to run for city council? Well, I was originally going to be in public administration when the Army decided they needed more, and I never quite got back to it. I've been litigated for many years. But I've watched the city council in this town basically do nothing for too long and too little. It's been too much of a group of the people who are established, the people who want to see status quo. I think that has to change. We have new people in town that have new ideas, and with those new ideas are going to change. But it can only be changed if we get a new majority on the city council. Otherwise, I don't see it happening. All of us have a lot of good ideas. ideas, and a lot of us are going to approach the idea of making our city better. But you've heard tonight some of our thinking about it, as to how we analyze problems, where we're coming from, what we have bring to the table, and everybody brings something to the table here. We're all qualified in that respect. The idea is we have to make a majority with 4 votes, and that is what needs to change on the city council. I've been trained as an arbitrator, a litigator, a mediator, and I probably excel at mediation more than anything else. I can put people together, I can also take businesses apart when it's needed to be done. I've got the background in government, I've got the experience, I've got the work knowledge, I have the practical life experience. When I talk with clients, I have to learn how they run their businesses, why they're running well, why they're failing. I put them together and take them apart and get them going. We can do the same thing with the city, but it starts with understanding how the city management form of government actually works. Because the city manager is supposed to take the policies, create programs, create standards to judge them by, and then report back so you can evaluate as a council whether you want to continue that program or change it, not micromanage it.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we only had 2 minutes to answer the questions that were presented to us this evening, and that truly was not enough time to explain our positions, and in particular where I am coming from with a lot of these issues that were brought forth. As I told you from the beginning, I do have 4 primary concerns, and number 1 is fiscal stability of our community. We have to be able to mind our budget. We need to watch where our money's going. We have to have realistic and sustainable contracts with all our unions. We have to be able to spend our money wisely. We have to be able to say enough is enough, and that we are no longer going to put ourselves back in the position we were in over the past 3 years. We're emerging from bankruptcy. Our community is now starting to rise above the ashes. The pendulum is swinging the other way, and I am so proud of this community that we are able to do that, and we are able to stand up. We have to look at economic development and revitalization as one of our top priorities. We have to be able to move forward and redevelop our town so that it is the shining star that it always has been. We have to concern ourselves with our educational system. We have to make sure that our future leaders of our community are going to be there for us. And lastly, we have to be able to concern ourselves with our public safety, that we have adequate fire, police, and medical attention that we pay taxes for, that we deserve as residents of this town. I would encourage you to approach me after this event is over. Talk to me. I've left my brochures and flyers on the back table. Incorporated with that is my website. Please email me. My phone number is also attached. Please call me. If you wish to find out what Bob is about, you need to ask me. And again, I thank you so very much for your time and the honor of being here to address you folks this evening. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here this evening and for listening to us and not falling asleep. It is hard work doing what we're doing. It's equally hard work to sit and listen. You've heard through our answers to all of these questions where we all stand on various issues and what we think is needed to move Vallejo ahead. So I'm not going to repeat that. Unfortunately, what you heard are basically sound bites. And to enlarge on any of them within 2 minutes is extremely difficult to do. There's some topics that obviously require much more in-depth conversation. I was glad to hear from so many of the people up here. They're concerned for the medical marijuana shops that are popping up all over Vallejo. So I am truly hoping when the moratorium that I requested and once again got voted down on comes back to the council, that there will be more support for it, because we need to put a stop to this proliferation and get ourselves at a point where we can move forward on it. I do want to address one thing that I understand is a concern with some people in the community. and that is, let's see, that I'm a senior, that I'm elderly, that I'm old. I'm a senior. I am not elderly, and I am not old. However, as my brother used to say, do not complain about getting older. Many are denied that privilege. So as your mayor, I will focus on restructuring city government, developing a plan for long-term financial stability, partnering with other agencies to eliminate duplication and waste, making government more transparent and business customer friendly, fixing our streets, improving Vallejo's image, and promoting inclusiveness. My only special interest group is the citizens of Vallejo. And guiding Vallejo to the future we all want requires a full-time mayor. Being retired, I can make that commitment of time and energy. If you want a different Vallejo, elect a different council majority.
The last 4 years have been challenging for everyone, and through it all, we are a stronger Vallejo, and I believe that. We got Vallejo back on track by balancing the budget for the last 4 years, which had not occurred before we got there in 2007. We reduced employee costs over the contracts that we were introduced to in 2007, and we've created a reserve. But it wasn't easy, and I've had to make tough choices that no other council member before or anyone besides me tonight has ever had to make, except for our mayor candidate and our current mayor. Throughout, I fought for sustainable solutions to our problems, encouraged efficiency by consolidating duplicated services, and stood up for the right decisions regardless of public scrutiny. My work is not done. I want to continue my service to the city of Vallejo and help with its recovery. The future of Vallejo depends on finding sustainable solutions to our problems. We need to think outside the box and find innovative ways to consolidate services. This saves the city money and improves service to our citizens. A great example of how successful this can be is the consolidation of our public transit system that is now called Soul Trans, and that's with the Benicia transit system. I will continue to work to ratify my chronic nuisance ordinance, to hold property owners accountable for the illegal activity that occurs on their property, and to redirect valuable resources to the rest of the community. My focus will be, as it was in the last 4 years, quality of life issues, providing adequate public safety service to our citizens, and creating jobs. As I said earlier, I cannot predict what future challenges may hold, but I can promise to bring a balanced approach to solve Vallejo's problems and plan for our future. Together, we all can continue to work to make Vallejo the best it can be, and I'd be honored for your vote on November 8th. And thank you for your time tonight. It is tiring to be up here, but I'm sure it truly is more tiring for you to listen to all of us yak, yak, yak. But I appreciate your attention. There are very important issues in this upcoming election, and it's important that you are made aware of who the candidates are and what we stand for. So thank you for your attention tonight.
All right, raise your hand if you're here because the bar is still open. So I really want to say thank you to you all for standing and listening to our ideas and our thoughts. If elected to the city council, I want to turn the page on 5-2 votes, 4-3 votes. I want to look at how do we build consensus between the council so that we can move the city forward in the best interest of the residents that we are elected to serve at large. That's going to be my commitment to this community. That's been my track record in public service, bringing folks together to have the tough conversations and to not forget that we're all in it for the same reasons, and we're in it to make our communities better. I don't think anyone wants to go backwards, and so I'm, again, committed to having disagreements with colleagues, but I'm not going to be disagreeable, and this is something that I'm going to commit to you all. Talking in public is something that I do, but it's not something that I'm comfortable with. I like to listen, I like to analyze data, and then I like to come up with a solution based on feedback from residents If elected, my door will be open to you, regardless if I agree with you on what you're saying, regardless if you agree with me and the ideas that I put forward. That's what public service is about. That's what being a representative is about, and that's what I will commit to doing. Again, I want to thank you for this opportunity to share my ideas. Please feel free to visit my website, loganforvallejo.com. I didn't spell out 4, so it's Logan, the number 4, Vallejo.com. Check it out. Leave me a comment. Go to my Facebook page if you use that form of media and share your ideas. I would love to incorporate it into my ideas for the city. Again, I want to thank you, and I have 10 seconds, so I'll reserve the balance of my time.
Like the rest of the panel here, I also would like to thank the gracious host of Hiddenbrooke for putting this forum together. Every one of us in this table are dedicated to Vallejo. What we're doing is very difficult for our wives. Ramona knows, my wife Gloria knows. This is difficult. We see less of each other. We spend long days, long nights trying to win your votes. It's a major undertaking to try and do something like this. And we thank you for your patience and your willingness to sit down with us and hear our ideas. With me, it's about the economy. It's all about jobs, jobs, jobs. And we achieve that, the rest will follow. Everything we want to do, improve public safety, work with our school district, fix our potholes, everything else will follow if we enhance our economy. Thank you very much. My last name is a little bit difficult to remember. It's Malgapo, M-A-L-G-A-P-O. My first name is a little bit easier. It's Jesus. Don't call me Jesus. I could never live up to that name. Folks, I'm asking for your vote on November the 8th, 2011. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I also want to thank you for coming out and listening to us. It's very difficult to get a real understanding of where someone is coming from and the issues with the 2 minutes that we try to rush things in. And I have a tendency to talk real fast when I'm trying to get things in 2 minutes. And it's probably confusing. So thank you. I think if you look at our council, you'll find that we're anything but the normal council. If you talk about, I think one of the candidates said we have the same old people. Well, I guess he's referring to me and Joanne, because I guess we're the oldest up there. But I think that we have a diverse council. I think that we have some bright ideas on the council. I think that decisions should be made by people who think differently. That way you get the best decision. And I could sit up here and talk to you about all the things that I've done over the last 4 years and say I, but to me, that's not what it's about, because no man is an island. And I can't get anything done without the assistance of other people. And that's why I promised the public that I would work on consensus building as one of the main things that I did when I took office. And I think if you'll go back and remember where we were the night that I was sworn in on a 5-2 vote, I think you'll, or a 4-2 vote, whichever it was, you'll realize that I have worked hard to build a consensus, and I have worked with people on the council as well as elsewhere who have been said to be on the other side of the political spectrum. What you have to be concerned about is one's motive. You may not like my decisions all the time, but I assure you that my motives will be about what's in the best interest of the city, not what's politically expedient. And so when you get ready to decide who you want as mayor, I ask you to look at who do you think can build a coalition? Who do you think can build a consensus? Who do you think can bring people together? I've done that on the state level. I've talked to state legislators. I've brought people together at the state level to make sure that we didn't get impacted negatively by the budget. I've worked on the national level to bring people together to get monies for the city of Vallejo. I've worked on the local level. I've been about what's in the best interest of our city. And I think you have to have a mayor. I know you have to have a mayor who can bring people together and get things done. I will put on the back of the table the things that I've worked on and have spearheaded. But again, I would say to you, even though I talk about those things, I recognize that I cannot do it by myself. I not only need me, I need the council and the people in the community. So we need to go to vote on November the 8th. I hope you pay close attention to where you want our city to go and who do you think that can bring about the consensus to get that done. And I hope that turns out to be me.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Hiddenbrooke Community Association, I first would like to thank the Hiddenbrooke Golf Club for providing this space, these accommodations for us as a public service. And also, on behalf of the association, I'd like to thank all the candidates for your time and interest in making Vallejo better. And we wish all of you luck in the ongoing campaign. Thank you for being here.